Today we are learning how to find the slope of a line from a graph. Let's start by looking at a coordinate plane and graphing this line. We'll call it line A. When we talk about the slope, we're talking about the steepness of a line. You could visualize a more steep line, or you could visualize a less steep line. But let's start with our line A. Before we do any math, we want to look at this visually. If you were to put a ball on this line and roll it from left to right on the graph, you can see that the ball is rolling uphill. It moves up as you move from left to right. This visually tells us that the line has a positive slope. But to calculate it mathematically, we need a formula. You find slope by taking the rise, or how far up the ball moves, and dividing it by the run, or how far sideways the ball moves. More mathematically, you can think about taking the change in a y-coordinate and dividing it by the change in an x-coordinate. And using math terms, we replace the word change with this symbol that we call delta. It looks like a triangle, so we can write that slope is delta y divided by delta x. Let's go ahead and use this to find the slope for line A. You should start by picking 2 points on the line. It's easier if you pick points that fall on whole number coordinates. Let's pick 1 point here and another point up here. Now to measure the change in y, we want to look for how far up you have to move to get from the first point to the second point. We can see that here you move up 1. Our change in y is 1. Then we divide that by our change in x. The change in x is how far over you move. Here we're moving to the right, or plus 1, so our change in x is 1. 1 divided by 1 gives us a slope of what? 1 divided by 1 equals 1. So this line has a slope of 1. And this will be true no matter which points you pick. For example, if we picked different points, we could do the same thing. If we measure how far up you have to move to get from the first point to the second, you can measure we move up or plus 2. There's a change in y of 2. And then if you divide by the change in x, well, you can measure that you have to move over or to the right 2. So we'll take 2 and divide by 2. What does 2 divided by 2 equal? Well, you should realize it's the exact same. It equals 1. No matter how you measure it, line A will have a slope of 1. Now you can do this process for any type of line. Let's look at another line and call it line B. Again, let's start by looking at this visually. If you were to put a ball onto this line and roll it from left to right, you can see this time the ball is actually rolling downhill. So unlike the last problem, this line is going to have a negative slope because it moves downhill from left to right. Now let's go ahead and calculate the slope of line B. Well, we start by picking any 2 points. Remember, it's easier to pick points that fall on whole number coordinates. So let's put one right here and another one right here. Now we can measure to get from the first point to the second, we have to move down 3. The change in y is minus 3. We can then divide this by the change in x, or how far over we have to move. You can see we move over to the right 1. So we'll take our negative 3 and divide by 1. What does negative 3 divided by 1 equal? Negative 3 divided by 1 equals negative 3. Just as we thought, this line had a negative slope. Now let's practice some of these together.